It's Friday, June 6th, 2025. It's not a big, beautiful blow-up. Call it a big, beautiful Chernobyl. Next on the AM Update. Well, I hope everybody just had fun and nobody got hurt. What happens when, and what does it look like when the richest man in the world declares war on the most powerful man in the world when both of those men were allies about 5 minutes ago? Well, we're seeing that play out as Elon Musk has gone thermonuclear now, not just critical, thermonuclear right now on the Trump administration and their support of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Elon Musk is very angry that the bill continues to spend from a deficit and increase the debt, even though the bill does do some good things. Here is President Trump reacting to Elon Musk's latest volley of attacks just yesterday at the White House.
But if they picked him, I would have won Pennsylvania. I won it by a lot. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here. Better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape, he said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon.
So Trump saying and charging Elon with only opposing the bill, the big, beautiful bill, because it cuts any tax credits for electric vehicles. To which Elon Musk responded, quote, "Whatever, keep the EV and solar incentive cuts in the bill, even though no oil and gas subsidies are touched, very unfair, but ditch the mountain of disgusting pork in the bill. Either you get a big and ugly bill or a slim and beautiful bill. Slim and beautiful is the only way." Elon Musk went on to say, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Democrats would control the House, and Republicans would be 51 to 49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude," end quote. Elon Musk also brought receipts, saying he's been very consistent with demanding a balanced budget. Here he is back in 2021.
The federal budget deficit is insane. It's like $3 trillion. Federal expenditures are $7 trillion. Federal revenue is $4 trillion. That's a $3 trillion difference in, if this was a company, it'd be a $3 trillion loss. So I don't know if we should be adding to that loss. That seems pretty crazy. Something's got to give. You can't just spend $3 trillion more than you own every year and expect, don't expect something bad to happen. I think, this is not good.
Elon Musk in 2021, he posted that clip yesterday, just as proof, he says, that he's been very consistent in demanding more fiscal sanity. Just an incredible, extraordinary development that Elon Musk, and I think he's right, that he had a huge hand in delivering the White House to President Trump and delivering a more comfortable Senate advantage in helping Republicans take back the House. I think he's correct in that assessment. But I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish here. He was talking about later on in the day, is it time to start a new political party? Boy, howdy. Are you new here? Are you new here? I know you were born in South Africa, but you've spent most of your life here. I'm also very sympathetic to Elon because, on the same token, everybody wants a balanced budget. That's not like astrophysics here. This is not launching rockets. It's a pretty simple demand. Now, how you actually get there is a lot more complicated and involves Congress. That's the main impasse here. I just hope, like I said, everybody's having fun and nobody gets hurt. Story number 3. President Trump said, quote, "We will not let what happened in Europe happen in America." And he declared this week that he's unveiling a travel ban targeting 12 nations, mostly Islamic majority countries from the Middle East and Africa. It's a strong first step toward fulfilling the original 2015 promise of a full moratorium on immigration from regions plagued by jihadist ideology. Those 12 countries are Burma, Afghanistan, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. He said, or the White House said in a fact sheet, quote, "We will restore the travel ban," some people call it the Trump travel ban, "and keep the radical Islamic terrorists out of our country that was upheld by the Supreme Court," end quote. "I must act to protect the national security and national interest of the United States and its people." So that's some good news there. Also some good news, according to Fox News and Bill Malugin, Immigration and Customs Enforcement made 2,368 nationwide arrests on Wednesday. That's a new daily record high for the agency. It comes just a day after setting a new record high on Tuesday with 2,267 arrests, and a significant increase over the daily average of 1,600 ICE arrests last week. We've now seen back-to-back days of record-high Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrests, which is attributed to an increase in enforcement at work sites, immigration court, and scooping up collaterals. Those are people in the U.S. illegally who were found with an ICE target but were not the target themselves. Immigration and Customs Enforcement tells Fox, quote, "If the big, beautiful bill passes as advertised with funding for 10,000 additional ICE personnel and tens of thousands of new ICE beds, ICE will be supercharged and arrest will shoot through the roof." I've seen this as being held up as one of the main defenses, despite some of the bad things in the big, beautiful bill. This is one of the main defenses of why you need to get this thing across the finish line. The only thing that matters right now is mass deportations. Until you can't get that under control, you're not going to be able to get anything else under control. Also sympathetic to that argument. Right now, where I am on the big, beautiful bill is kind of there. We can play accountant later. And by how, I mean, being a father, provider to 2 children who I hope go on to have their own children in this country someday, I have as much at stake as you or anybody listening, as you and your loved ones. And I don't want to saddle the future generations with mountains of debt. But a big reason why we have this mountain of debt, one of the main reasons, is that a lot of people are basically acting as leeches on the system, on your taxpayer dollars, whether they're illegals or whether they're people who could be working but are not and are on welfare. And this bill takes some steps in the right direction to getting those people off. But an even bigger problem are all the millions, tens of millions maybe, of people in this country illegally, who just their very presence here is a drain on the system. Until you get that fixed, you can't play accountant later. Story number 5, the Supreme Court on Thursday revived a lawsuit from an Ohio woman who claimed she was the victim of, quote-unquote, reverse discrimination because her employer denied her a promotion because she is straight. In a unanimous decision on the case of Ames v. Ohio Department of Youth Services, the High Court tossed out a ruling by a federal appeals court that dismissed Marlene Ames's claim because she failed to clear a higher bar applied to members of a majority group in order for her employment discrimination case to proceed. The justices concluded that a background circumstances requirement cannot be squared with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and sent Ames's case back to the lower courts for further proceedings. The background circumstances rule required plaintiffs who are members of a majority group, think that white, heterosexual, to be put forth or to put forth more evidence showing that their employer is unusual because it discriminates against the majority. Ames had argued that the requirement unfairly imposed a higher burden on her as a heterosexual woman. So this is some sort of rule in the U.S. judiciary that if you're basically white and straight, that's what we're talking about here, you have to clear a higher bar of evidence for claims about discrimination. That in and of itself is discriminatory, even if you come from a quote-unquote majority group. That'll do it for a Friday 5-pack. When we come back after the break, ask or tell me anything. It'll be your turn to talk. That's coming up next. Ask or tell me anything. Ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story that needs covered that I did not get to. We'll start with a news story. Jim, always good, updating us on developments out of the state of Michigan. Representative James DeSana introduced articles of impeachment this week against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, citing repeated violations of Michigan election law and abuse of office. I think we had a similar story about this a few weeks ago. DeSana said, quote, "It is my belief that we are dealing with the most lawless Secretary of State in Michigan history." He said during a press conference at the Capitol, "We as a legislative body are the only ones now that can hold Secretary Benson accountable." House Resolution 118 outlines 3 articles of impeachment alleging that Benson overstepped her legal authority, undermined election procedures, and manipulated the administration of elections. DeSana noted that Michigan courts have ruled against Benson on at least 7 occasions. Key allegations include Benson's unilateral decision to ban open carry within 100 feet of polling places on Election Day, which DeSana called, quote, "a clear violation of our U.S. Constitution," and her issuance of presumption of validity for absentee ballot signatures, which he says undermines statutory election safeguards. Good for State Representative DeSana there in Michigan. Thank you, Jim, for sending that story in. Hopefully some attempt at accountability for some of these wicked actors in places like Michigan will bear some fruit down the line. Zach says, in 2021, during COVID, Boeing forced me to take the jab or lose my job, and the house I had just bought months prior. Almost immediately after taking it, my taste disappeared for months and maybe returned to 70% to this day. Things like peanut butter, chocolate, and most sweets taste terrible. Up until recently, coffee was also on that list of things that tasted absolutely terrible. Since it has returned, I find myself drinking coffee constantly. I have heard you are a coffee expert, and I was wondering what is the best brand I should look into trying. Now, number 1, sorry about that. That sucks. And maybe you should sue. Number 2, when I had COVID naturally, the first time, like the actual OG COVID, my taste also disappeared. And my mom, when she had it originally the first time, her taste disappeared, and it's kind of more like your story, where it kind of didn't come back for a long time. And it was very odd. It was very odd. When it did start to come back, there would be this just constant smell in my nostrils of like, it was just nasty. It was just acrid. Just nasty smell. And finally it started to come back. But one of the first things that started to come back was the taste of coffee. Now, having said that, I'm not a coffee expert. But what I do like are dark roast French roasts. Those are very good. You know, my favorite kind of coffee is actually what you can get at Casey's. I don't know if they have Casey's where you live, but the dark roast coffee at Casey's is actually really good. What I drink for dark roast is actually the K-Cups, just the Trader Joe's brand French roast coffee. That's what I drink the most at home. I kind of scrounge and see what I can get at work from our landlords, since they have coffee there, and I drink more than my fair share. But there is one brand. I do not like... I did not like flavored coffees very much. And flavored coffees, I mean like hazelnut flavoring. However, there is one variety brand and specific roast of coffee that during different times of the year I cannot get enough of. And it's called Verena Street Mississippi Grog. Verena Street Mississippi Grog. I believe you can buy that on Amazon. It's kind of expensive. Looks like it's maybe on sale right now if you have a K-Cup or a Keurig. But the Mississippi Grog from Verena Street Coffee is very, very good. So that would be I'm not a coffee snob aficionado to the nth degree. I do have preferences, but I'm not an expert. But sorry about the circumstances with the jab there, Zach. Doug says, I used a crab boil mix to season a pork butt. What's the most unusual seasoning you've used? I don't really use any unusual seasonings. I think the tried and true seasonings are tried and true for a reason. I think maybe the most out there that I've gotten with any meat rub that I've used is like some off-brand ones from Aldi. They're okay, but nothing beats the Meat Church Holy Cow rub. You can put that on anything. And anything. It's just a traditional rub, just a traditional meat rub. It works great in my experience on pork, on beef. I've used it on everything. Also really, really like the Kinder's The Blend. It's just salt, pepper, garlic. That's all. Really good. Next, let's go to Tiny Johnny says, in the past couple of years, who have you gained more respect for in politics? Who have you lost more respect for? Lost more respect for. Let's start back to front. I think... Boy, I don't really respect anybody. That's why this is hard to answer. And I think my answer to your other question might make some people mad. But hopefully when I explain my reasoning for that, people will understand. But maybe somebody I've lost respect for is Ted Cruz. It just seems like the dude was just groomed to be more than just a senator. And it seems like he doesn't really have that many aspirations beyond just creating sound bites. That's just my read on it. I don't have any beyond. My boss at the day job knows him better than I do. I don't hear anything. This is not based on anything of that relationship. I'm just looking at it from my own perspective. Probably Ted Cruz, because he has the ability and capabilities to be a lot more than just a U.S. senator. And it doesn't seem like he has very many aspirations otherwise. Who have I gained more respect for in politics? All right, gird your loins. Mike Johnson, actually. Because when you really analyze, pick anybody to be House Speaker. Anybody. Pick Thomas Massie to be House Speaker. Are you really going to tell me that the fundamental problems in that chamber are different because of Thomas Massie is Speaker of the House? Or pick any one of your favorite congressmen? No. And so that dude has to navigate all of this. He has just made his bed with Trump, which I think is probably smart. He's just Trump's man in the House of Representatives. But trying to navigate all of this and doing it in a classy way, in a professional way, I don't know how different of a job, I'm not going to say better or worse, but how different of a job anybody could do in that circumstance. So I think the person I've gained more respect for, not an endorsement, but more respect for is Mike Johnson. And I just go back to the quote that I saw during whatever budget fight that was back in December. See, we have so many of these fake budget fights, although I think this one is real with the big, beautiful bill. But all these fake budget fights, I can't even remember what we were fighting about back in December. But they had to get to 218 to pass this bill. And I remember somebody quoting behind the scenes Mike Johnson saying, and there were threats of having him vacate the chair too. Somebody saying, quoting Mike Johnson as saying, if anybody else can get to 218, God bless him. That kind of indicates just how much of a morass that is. Brian Snyder says, are the drone shows in China something to be concerned about? Well, I just think it shows that they are far more capable with drone technology than we would maybe like to admit. The shows themselves, do we need to be concerned about that? If that's your question, probably not. But the overall pursuit of drone technology and honing of it, yeah, it seems like they're way ahead of us in that technology. So yeah, it's something that I'm concerned about. It's what I was talking about on Monday. Eugene says, is our country too far gone? It seems like no matter how much corruption is exposed and how many liars are called out, nothing ever happens. We need Christ more than ever, and he is the only one that can save our country. That being said, are we too far gone? We might be. And I think that's kind of the realization that Elon Musk might have come to, is that he's a guy that's not used to taking no for an answer, and he essentially got told no. And you saw his immediate reaction a couple of weeks ago when he started to sour on the big, beautiful bill. He said, well, I'm going to go back, focus full-time on my companies. The only way to save our country in terms of fiscal sanity is to dramatically increase the gross domestic product. And that's what I'm going to do now. And I think this just festered and ate at him for the last couple of weeks. That he delivered the White House, or at least had a huge hand in delivering the White House to President Trump, played a role in delivering the House and Senate to Republicans. And now it's his problem again through his companies to save this country, when he just did all of this work, invested all of this time and energy and money. Now it's his problem again. Like he doesn't get any help here. I think that's his frustration. And so he's saying, nope, I don't know if I'm going to be successful here in turning the screws on Trump and the Trump administration and Congress, but we're going to see what we can get done. I think that's the real frustration, is that he senses we might be too far gone, and he senses he might be the only one with the capabilities and resources to do anything about it before it's too late. I think the fundamental problem here, Eugene, is that when it comes to the average voter, who's, all there for the most part, they want one of three things. They want lower taxes, they want benefits, and they want a balanced budget. There's no possible universe in this galaxy, or there's no galaxy in this universe, I should say, where any Congress anywhere, no matter how small e evolved any life form could be, there's no universe and no galaxy within those universes where all three of those priorities can actually be delivered on by any Congress. You can't have a balanced budget and benefits and low taxes. You just can't. But that's what most of our electorate wants. Until that changes, Congress ain't going to change. So, are we too far gone? We're going to see if we can start to flatten the curve, if you will, of deficit spending, and then hopefully flatten the curve of the debt, and see electorally what that does. But until the people change, this trajectory is not going to change. A couple more real quick. CS sent me this video from comedian Jim Breuer. It's a new show I think he's got on YouTube. And I rarely do this when y'all send me videos or podcasts to listen to. I just don't have enough time. But this one was only 10 minutes, so I watched it. And Jim Breuer discusses how back in 2009, he was kind of in this in-between place in his career where he knew that God wanted him to use his talents and abilities in a way that would change people's lives, more than just being a mere comedian, good as he is. And so he started writing a book on his way to some conference in Las Vegas. So he wrote this book on an airplane. He got to Las Vegas, they got to their room, nice opulent room at Caesar's Palace, kept writing. And he just knew that this was something that God wanted him to do, this book that he was working on. And he was writing all of this by hand in a notebook. And it was time to go to dinner or something. And he got really concerned about leaving his notebook alone in the room. And he was like, he felt some sort of spiritual battle taking place in that room about whether or not he should actually leave this notebook that he'd been working on for this last couple of days for his book or whatever. And he thought to himself, I've been staying in hotels for 30 years. I've never had it broken into. What am I doing? And then he said he just felt the spiritual battle. He took the notebook over to the window, and he said, Devil, I'm in your lair. I'm working on this book that is going to challenge and dispute everything that you stand for. I'm in your den, and there's nothing you can do to stop me from writing this work. So he left it out in the open at the end of the table. I don't want to ruin the entire video, but they came back from dinner. The notebook was there, but the pages that he had written on were not. You should go look up that video. I Challenged the Devil and Lost Everything by comedian Jim Breuer. That was a pretty incredible story. And that's going to do it for another week on the AM Update. Bella and I will be back tomorrow morning for No Suck Saturday, including it's the first Saturday of the month. That means it's time for Ask Izzy. Ask a nurse who knows any question about modern medicine, both natural and the more conventional medicine. You can ask your questions at Ask Izzy, I-Z-Z-Y, AskIzzyNSS@gmail.com. AskIzzyNSS@gmail.com. Your questions about health and wellness and anything touching the world of medicine for Ask Izzy tomorrow morning on No Suck Saturday. If you don't catch that, catch you again on Monday with a fresh episode of the AM Update. Have a wonderful weekend.